Anonymous online chat is where predators hunt for children. I don't like saying that out loud. I'm not trying to be dramatic. That is just what it is. They don't go to the park in the van anymore. They don't need to put themselves at that level of risk, right? Because as weird as it sounds, we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the predator. In order to manage the risk, we must assess the risk. Does the predator want to go show his face at the park and potentially get caught by the police and all the cameras and all the things, and everybody's got cameras in their pockets with the license plates and everything else? Or do they want to go online and get on a VPN and be username 123XYZ and say, hey, kid, I'm also a kid?
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast. Guys, it is finally here, our Black Friday sale. This is only one of 2 sales that we run every single year, and it's finally here. I'm so excited to share it with you. You can now get $150 off of your lifetime membership to the Birth Lounge. We run sales at Black Friday and Mother's Day, and that is it. So for this week only, you will be able to save mega time on your lifetime membership of the Birth Lounge. Let me give you a little rundown about what makes the Birth Lounge so special. It is literally unhinged. It is like nothing else you're gonna find out there on the market, and that is the way that we are able to have the results that we have. We have people that literally walk away with absolutely zero birth trauma, and they achieve all of their birth goals, and they have no tearing. They push for less than 30 minutes, and the best one yet is that we have just a 3% C-section rate. Yeah, I am able to help you truly go into the hospital system, navigate the conversations with your provider, stay in control from start to finish, and avoid unwanted interventions and unnecessary things like an unnecessary C-section or an unnecessary induction. So how can this be? Well, I'm teaching you the control method, which is going to help you understand all of the aspects of labor that are within your control, and then we're going to teach you how do you control them. The problem that I find with a lot of traditional childbirth ed classes is that they just teach you your options. They say, well, you can have this or you can have that, and these are what your options are. But then when you get in the hospital system, you find that you're getting pushback from staff, or you are feeling like you don't really have those options, or maybe you're feeling pressured and you don't know how to navigate those conversations. That's exactly what I teach you how to do. I'm deconstructing all of those barriers, those road bumps, those things that hold you up from actually achieving your goals, because just knowing your options is not enough. The Birth Lounge is a comprehensive course. So when you go with the Birth Lounge, you will not need any other form of preparation when it comes to preparing for your birth. Inside the Birth Lounge, you are going to learn stages of labor, the ins and outs of navigating the hospital system, how to engage in respectful collaborative conversation with your medical team, pain relief options, labor positions, pushing positions, how to reduce tearing, how do you avoid things like induction, C-section, and unnecessary interventions? And finally, how do you advocate for your goals so that you can say yes to the things that matter to you? You can request alternatives when that's appropriate, and you can decline things that don't feel good to you. Plus, in the lifetime membership, you're going to get free access to our Dad Days course, which is a comprehensive course made for male partners to help them understand how can they best support you in pregnancy? What is their role in labor and delivery? How do they advocate for you? How can they keep you comfortable and provide pain relief during the birth experience? And then finally, what is their role in postpartum, and how do they help you navigate this new space of becoming a mom in the best way possible? You're also going to get access for free for our secret sauce to pushing. This is where I teach you how to achieve those results I talked about in the beginning, pushing for less than 30 minutes, avoiding tearing, and really understanding what muscles to engage to properly push your baby out. First of all, your pelvic floor does not push your baby out. That lady needs to yield out of the way. So what muscles do you use? That's exactly what I'm teaching you in the secret sauce to pushing. And yes, I'm teaching you how to push with an epidural and without an epidural. Don't worry, I don't really care how you birth your baby. I want you to be equipped no matter what pops up in your labor, because this is your birth. I want you to choose how you want to do it. My job is to make sure that no matter what choice you make, you feel empowered in doing that. You're also going to get one of my number one downloads, which is our scripts for advocacy. This is an entire packet of the most common conversations that you're going to face in labor and in the end of pregnancy that often start you down this slippery slope of handing over your control. Not only do I provide you with the evidence to have these conversations, but I'm actually giving you the words to have these conversations, i.e. the scripts for advocacy. In addition to that, you're going to get all of my PDF guides, partner guides, epidural guides, induction cheat sheets, and my brand new Birthing Your Big Ass Baby course, where I step you through the actual data of truly evaluating whether your baby is going to be quote unquote big or not. What does ACOG say? What does the AAP say? And what are the true medical recommendations when it comes to suspected macrosomia, i.e. a big baby? I think you might be surprised to learn that less than 1% of all babies in the US are born truly meeting the criteria for macrosomia. So why are inductions and C-sections so common? Well, that's exactly what I'm teaching you in the Birthing Your Big Ass Baby course, and I'm going to teach you how you can decline those if they don't feel aligned to you. And finally, probably my favorite perk of the lifetime membership is you get a box that is handpicked by me, curated to help you have your best birth possible. This is a birth box that includes all of my favorite things, not only that I have used for the last 10 years to help women achieve their best birth, but the same tools that I'm using in my own birth. Things like a TENS unit, a rebozo, a comb for pain relief, self-care items, breastfeeding items, and so much more. One of my favorite things is actually the fuzzy socks. I love them. They're so soft. Oh my gosh. This box is packed with goodies. It's worth over $120, and I'm sending it to you because I want you to be equipped to have the absolute most glorious and joyous birth experience that you possibly can. And I know that you can't do that without having the proper tools. And so not only do I teach you how to use those in the birth lounge, but I'm gifting them to you because I want them to be part of your birth bag. So through the 28th, you will be able to take advantage of our lifetime membership and $150 off. You can visit thebirthlounge.com/join to take advantage of this special Black Friday deal. Again, 5 days only, November 24th through the 28th. So you've got today, the 28th left. Do not miss out. If you miss this sale, you'll have to wait till Mother's Day. I genuinely cannot wait to help you have your best birth possible. I'll see you in the lounge. Bye. All right, you guys, let's talk about today's episode. And this is one that actually is semi out of character, not necessarily character for me, but kind of out of character for the podcast. But if you follow along on Instagram, and by the way, if you're not following along on Instagram, then what are you doing with your life? But if you follow along on Instagram, then you know that I am no stranger to sharing internet safety tips in my story. Something that I'm super passionate about, but doesn't have anything to do with really birth work or labor or advocating for yourself, and it's only kind of motherhood adjacent, is keeping our kids safe online. As a parent, I'm sure you have thought about how the internet impacts parenthood and safety and what you will and won't allow your children to do, and how much do we actually share about our kids and our families online, not only for like privacy reasons, but to keep them safe online too. We've all heard the stories of the tragic endings of teenagers either being bullied online or sharing explicit pictures and then being blackmailed, or even worse, getting wrapped up so deeply with bad people online that they actually end up trafficked or seriously hurt. Also, something new and up and coming that we've got to be considering is AI and our children and boundaries of technology in our home. Well, that is exactly what we are diving into today. I'm super stoked to have Ben Gillenwater on the show today, or as you may know him, the family IT guy. Ben is a 30-year cybersecurity expert, including time at the NSA, and he's a dad who cares deeply about the impact of technology on children's mental health and quality of life, plus keeping our families safe. We're going to dive into algorithms and mental health and the actual addictive factors of social media and how those are purposefully curated. It's truly terrifying. We're also going to talk about the risk of anonymity and red flags online and device-free parenting, and how do you, within your family, create trust versus control, because at the end of the day, obviously, long term, our children are going to have to interact with these systems. I mean, the internet's not going anywhere, AI's not going anywhere, and we do have to teach our children how to be safe online, how to protect themselves, how do you spot manipulative and bad, shady behavior online, and who do you tell when things maybe go wrong? I'm not going to lie to you. This episode is a little scary. It really terrified me. And you're going to hear me say such in the episode. You're going to hear me say, like, wow, this is super scary to me. But what I will say is, just like planning for birth, we have to be having these conversations so that we know how to protect our family, how to keep our children safe, and we're keeping this open line of communication with our children. So if and when things do get hairy online, you have already curated a safe space where they can come to you and say, Mom, Dad, I think I messed up, or there's somebody creepy in my DMs and I'm not really sure what to do. The worst thing that we can do as parents is shut down that communication and leave our children feeling stranded, like they don't have any help and therefore they have nobody to turn to except their peers. This episode was handpicked by me, as was our guest, Ben. I really, really, really enjoy the information and the education that he puts out online, and I knew that I had to bring it to you guys so that you had the information and the education to keep your families safe. So buckle up and put on your big girl pants, because again, this episode definitely can make you feel big things, but fear not. Ben and I are not only going to tell you why you need to care about this kind of stuff and why it's important, but he is going to lay out exactly what you can do to keep your kids safe online and to protect your family's information when it comes to big AI, technology, and the internet. So without further ado, Ben, welcome to the show.
Hi, HeHe. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so stoked. You have no idea how excited I am for this conversation, partly because it's so different than anything I have ever covered on the show before, but partly because my favorite episodes are the ones where I am not the expert, that I actually genuinely get to learn something. And I have talked about it on the show before. I love technology, but I'm equally scared of it. And the more that I learn about the internet and kids and AI and the dangers out there, the more fearful I become. And so I'm really excited to have a conversation today about what are the things that we genuinely need to be concerned about, and then what has kind of been blown out of proportion. And because technology is not going anywhere, how do we balance this in our life with our children? So I think I would love to start with the addiction of technology, because if you're anything like me, you check your phone multiple times an hour. It is the first thing I used to pick it up the first thing in the morning. Now I do a little meditation, but that's only because I'm pregnant. I will be interested to see if I keep that up when I'm postpartum. But it's like our email is always in our hand. We have everything right at our fingertips. I mean, we're just constantly connected to our phone. I even get sad when I look out in restaurants and it's like two people sitting at a table and they're both on their phone. And I'm like, look at this missed opportunity for connection. So, what do we need to
Yeah.
know about the psychology and technology and how those two things overlap for the human experience?
Lovely question. I I'm going to sort of, what's the right word? Disassemble the question a little bit
Please do.
and sort of take a couple steps back in terms of incentives. So I have learned, okay, so I've been in this game for 30 years of dealing with technology, and I've been exposed to computer systems where that I've designed or participated in the design of, all the way down to local scale, home stuff, business stuff, government stuff, defense, intelligence, and commercial. And so I've come to understand that, like a lot of the rest of the world, the most important thing to look at when we want to learn about how systems work and how we interact with systems is the money. So how does the money flow and under what circumstances?
Hmm.
And so it's important to recognize that we currently exist in an attention economy. So we trade our attention for knowledge, entertainment, trying to avoid boredom, feeding our manufactured addictions that manufactured not by us, but by, software companies. So we live and participate in this attention economy. And one of the things that I like to think about is that as humans, I think we kind of have like two primary resources or currencies. We have time and we have attention. And they're both finite. So we can't make more time and we can't make more attention. And so, how conscious are we as individuals of where our attention goes? And is it, are we intentionally spending it on our spouse or our baby or our teenager or ourselves? Or is it being taken? And so when you look at, you mentioned, pick how many times a day do you pick up your phone? How much time do you spend on the phone? And there's a lot of nuance in there because there's work, there's fun, there's research, there's doing podcasts. So there's nuance in there, and like, screen time is not like a globulous thing, like you can break it into pieces. But of the, some people spend up to 14 hours a day on their phones. Some people spend 4, some people spend 8. In general, it's a lot. Like if you look at the percentage of the day, if let's say most people sleep for 8 hours roughly, that leaves you with, if I can do math, 16 hours left in the day. And then if you spend 4 to 8 to 14, then how many does that leave you left to spend on yourself and your kids and your spouse and all this? So I like to start there and just think about the principle of our human currencies. and of the finite resources that we have, that we are so fortunate to be in this beautiful planet right now, we have these two currencies. And so if we go back to money flow, every time I interact with a technology system, always in the back of my mind is what are the incentives that brought this system to me? So for the company that makes the software or the hardware that I interact with, why did they make that stuff? And for the stuff that's free, especially, why is it free? Why is Instagram free? Why is TikTok free? Why is YouTube free? It's because it's not free. It's just we're not exchanging dollars, we're exchanging attention. Right? So we are not the customers of those companies. We are the products that they are selling to their customers. So I like to look at it like this. If you take the public companies that exist, the big companies in the space, so take Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all this Oculus headsets and all this stuff, and the Ray-Ban glasses, TikTok, Snapchat. If you go look at their SEC filings for being publicly traded companies, they'll tell you how many dollars go into which buckets. And so, for example, Google in 2023 or 24, one of those 2 years, they did 76% of their revenue, which was in the $300 billion range, was from selling ads. Right? And so what does that mean? That means that Google is an advertising company. Google is not a technology company. They build technology to facilitate their advertising business. Facebook, it's like 99% of their revenue is from selling ads. They are an advertising company. They are not a connect with your friends and family company. They are a study everybody on the planet to understand their behaviors so that they can better sell targeted ads. Now, that by itself wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't then maximized. So if I can generate $10 from knowing about everything I can know about HeHe, and I can generate $10 a day by selling ads that target you, and I'm using $10 because it's easy math, then I'm doing about $300 a month. And if I can study you further, what if I give you a free phone? And in that phone is a bunch of tracking stuff so that I know where you go, I know who you hang out with, I know what you buy, all that kind of stuff. These are all real things, by the way, but I'm just kind of using general examples, but these are all real things. Then maybe instead of $300 a month, maybe now I can generate $400, $500. Maybe I can increase my revenue per user. So there's one of the primary measurements that tech companies use is called ARPU, average revenue per user. So if I'm tracking ARPU, average revenue per user, and let's say that my base ARPU for an average person is $300 a month, and if I can give you a free phone so I can track you better and sell more targeted ads, and I can bump the ARPU to $400 a month on average, that's a 33% increase. And if the cost of the phone is $75, and then I give it to you for free, and then so that's profitable to do. And so, for example, I'll tell you a little fun story that helped me learn how these things work. So I used to work for BlackBerry, and I was working for them when BlackBerry was like the thing, And so it was like 2010. I was in their Singapore office, and I was on the Asia Pacific team, and the Indonesian market at the time for BlackBerry was the biggest market in the world. So BlackBerry is popular in the Western world, sees Americans and Canadians and Europeans using BlackBerries. It turns out that actually Indonesia was the biggest BlackBerry spot. So I went to Jakarta all the time. And the Facebook guys, one of the co-founders of Facebook, came out to meet with us and pitch us on what they call a zero rating program. And so what they do is they connect with and partner with the cellular companies. And so like in the States, we have Verizon and AT&T. So like in Indonesia, they have Telkomsel, for example. That's a big one out there. So they might partner with Telkomsel and say, hey, Telkomsel, most of your customers don't have internet access because it's too expensive. What if we paid for it? But what if they couldn't access the whole internet? They could only access Facebook, right? So that's what they do in developing countries, is they pay for internet access that's restrictive. They can't access everything. They can only access Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and so forth. And they give it for free, and then they get to study all these hundreds of millions of people that use it. And why do they do that? Of course, it's profitable, right? They're not in the business of losing money. It's because then they can sell ads. And so we exist in this attention economy. And so every time I touch a system, in the back of my mind are these things: is why? What are the incentives that are attached to the systems that I use? So that's a very sort of complicated, long-winded way of describing the whole thing, but that's what goes through my mind. Every time I touch Gmail, every time I do a Google search, every time I open Facebook, every time I open YouTube, every time I use a Windows computer. Windows is an advertising platform now. Microsoft is an advertising company now. So they've got a bunch of tracking stuff built into their operating systems. I'm always thinking like, what am I trading? It's not to say like, oh, don't use these systems. That's everybody's individual prerogative because there's a value exchange.
Mm-hmm.
But is the value exchange intentional? And is it honest? Right? That's the trouble that I see a lot of times is a lot of these tech companies are, where on Google's website do they say, we are the largest advertising company? They don't say that. They say, how do you like Gmail? Isn't it great? It's free. You know? So now, okay. So this is the adult version of the conversation so far where it's technical, it's complicated. The way that you pose the question, I really like. It's because it starts with us, right? We haven't talked about kids yet, and so that's the next step. We have to start with us. Are we aware of our participation in this attention economy? Are we each individually as parents and as not parents, as just adults out there in the world, whether we have kids or not, are we aware of the exchange? Because for me, being an adult, I like the idea of making intentional trade-offs.
Mm.
There's trade-off to everything, right? Am I going to trade this to get that? Now, am I aware of, is the person or the entity or the company that I'm making the trade with, are we all above board and on the same team? You know, and unfortunately, some of these tech companies have demonstrated that they're not on our team. They're trying to trick us. And I say that carefully because we just had a bunch of whistleblowers from Meta, from Facebook, to give testimony to the United States Senate. They're intentionally deceiving families about keeping kids safe in virtual reality. That's a big problem. I don't understand adults who are not interested in keeping kids safe.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't jive. It doesn't match my brain. I don't get it. But it's real, right? So when we're making these trade-offs, who are we making them with and at what cost? Okay, so if we are dialed in as adults and as parents as to like, yes, I'm making the trade-off. I feel I want to give an hour of my attention to Instagram today in exchange for the entertainment and whatever, right? Awesome. Fair deal, you know, as long as we're all on the same page kind of thing. Now let's transition to talk about kids. Kids don't know, of course, because they're kids, about economies or trade-offs or, you know, these concepts of like our human currencies. You know, now we can teach them these things and we should perhaps, but where it gets kind of sketchy is in order to maximize the amount of time that HeHe spends on her Instagram today, maybe I haven't given her a free phone, but I've made Instagram so wonderful to use that it's just, if I'm bored, I'm going to pick it up, right? In order to do that, they have, because we talked about maximizing, if it's $300 ARPU average and we bump it to 400 by giving a free phone, every increase in ARPU is magnified by billions, right? Because Meta has billions of people that use its stuff. So if I can extract an extra 2 cents per person times a billion, that's a big deal. And so what they do is, because every business naturally is going to maximize profit. That is what a business is, right? And so to maximize that profit, what they've done, and I talk about Facebook a lot here, this is across the board. Any company that operates an algorithm, any company that participates in the exchange of attention, hires psychologists, psychiatrists, behavioral analysts, these specialists in the mind, specialists in addiction, to sit side by side with the software engineers and the designers of these systems and say, we found that if you change that button from that shade of blue to that shade of green, 0.6% more people will click on it. And if you scroll and the interface shows you the pictures in a certain way as you scroll, if we do them a different way, we get an extra 5 minutes of attention on average per person per day. And if we show them stuff that they like and we put them into an echo chamber, we get an extra 20 minutes a day. Whereas if we show them stuff that they disagree with, we actually lose some of their attention. Right? So they are professionally fine-tuning the systems to be as addictive as possible because that is in their best interest to do. That is the way that they maximize their profit as an advertising company. So you map it to kids, and we end up hearing a bunch of anecdotes about extreme increases in statistical anxiety and depression occurrences amongst young people, down into single-digit ages. Like, this affects the youngest of children. And so I'll say something that's like a little bit dark, and then I'll move on. And I'm going to say it because it hugely impacted the way that I view this entire topic, and it's massively shifted my perspective on the whole thing. I give lectures on this topic. I write articles, I make videos, right? And as I was preparing for one of my lectures in 2024, I'd been hearing about these anecdotes about anxiety and depression. Now, the thing is, with anxiety and depression, there's not very good data because there's not a consistent global mechanism to measure anxiety or depression. There are not databases that exist where psychiatrists are entering structured data into a field about their patients. So it's not good data. And then so I thought, okay, well, what are the outcomes of anxiety and depression? Well, the worst outcome is suicide. And I already feel emotional just bringing it up. I'm going to try to kind of choke my way through this because I hate talking about it, but it's important.
We have to, yeah.
So I said, okay, let me go do a little research. Turns out the Centers for Disease Control in the US and the World Health Organization both offer publicly available databases where you can analyze death certificates. And so I went to the World Health Organization's death certificate database, and they hold death certificate data globally all the way back to 1951. And when I looked this up in late of 2024, they had data up to 2019 or 2020 or something like that. So I'm looking at roughly almost like 70 years of data. And you can break it down by age ranges. They break it by 5-year chunks. And so I said, okay, show me ages 0 through 39. Give me a big wide age range, and then show me suicide statistics. What percentage of deaths that occurred each year were self-inflicted? And they even have, it's crazy, they have codes on like method of self-inflicted death. And it's deep stuff. Okay, so I analyzed the data. What I found out was that in 1951, at the beginning of the data collection, young people ages 10 to 24 of the bigger group had roughly a suicide rate of 1%. And the youngest people, it was close to zero. It was like a blip above zero. Of course, I mean, these are
Of
like young
course, yeah, children,
right?
yeah.
Literally, like, so elementary school, middle school age children. Okay, cool. So we go on to the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. It actually bumps up to about 5% for like age 10 and up. Like 10 to 14, it bumps to about 5, you know. And so whatever was going on in the world, like the numbers went up. And then we get to 2007. So in 2007, there were a couple of major technology releases that occurred. So the iPhone came out in 2007. That was very transformational. And Facebook came out in 2007. Now, in 2007, Facebook was desktop only. There was no phone version because, you know, the iPhone just came out. They didn't even have the App Store until like the iPhone 3 or 4 or something. And so, okay, so Facebook existed. And then in 2012, Facebook came out on mobile. And then there was like Instagram around that time. I think TikTok was like 2016. And so I mapped it out. This is on my website, by the way, on familyitguy.com. I have an article called Digital Danger Zone. And you can see all this data. I have the charts and stuff. And in these charts, I mapped out the release of all these major technology systems that are super popular, like globally popular. And each of them correlates to a bump in the chart. The number went from 5% on average for the grouping of 10 to 24. So it's 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24. There's 3 age groups. On average, went from 5% to 20% in 2019. Suicide is now the number 2 cause of death for young people. It's car accidents is number 1, suicide is number 2, and homicide is number 3, actually for both boys and girls, interestingly enough. In fact, all 3 are the same across both boys and girls. I look at my role as a dad. I joke with my wife, it's real. I'm the head of security for the family.
Yeah.
I actually have a security background, as it turns out, which is helpful because also my job as a dad is the head of security. Well, security as a process, generally speaking, is assessing risk so that you can understand it and then managing for it. Okay, so if we are, as parents, concerned with like, where do I focus my energy to keep my kids safe? Well, now we know the top 3 causes of death. So the big picture stuff, automotive accidents. I need to be a safe driver. I need to have good tires. I need to have good brakes. I need to have good following distance. And I need to behave in a way that teaches my kids how to do the same when they grow up. Okay, so still a big problem. We do our best to cover it within our budget and all this kind of stuff, right? Suicide is now the number 2 leading cause of death, and apparently correlates to the release of social media and putting those things into the pockets of children. My brain, I saw the data. The data is in the WHO database. I still don't know how to process it, but there it is, okay? Now, prior to finding this data, I used to say in my lectures, like I'd give like a moderate, you know, like, this stuff is addictive, it's dangerous, social media is not really safe for kids, but if you're gonna do it, you know, Instagram has parental controls and Snapchat has parental controls, and there's ways you could use technology to manage the chaos. Now, no. Now I'm hard line, absolutely not. Social media is not safe for kids. It's not safe for adults either, by the way, because all the numbers increased for adults too, but they increased way more for kids. And as it turns out, you know, I ran the age range 10 to 24. The 25 to 29 group had a significantly lower number. At age 25 is often when we finish developing our frontal lobe of our brain. So this correlates to brain development, So when we talk about young people being addicted to their phones or being addicted to social media, this is a human biology problem. And I'll tell you, there's a good thing about this. When a problem is this big and this loud, it becomes clear, right? When a problem is small and murky and maybe this and maybe that, there's more nuance, there's more consideration. When a problem is this big, for me, it becomes clear as like, awesome, let me remove that factor. My kids don't need social media. Let me just not introduce that risk into their life. Let me not introduce that addictive drug. Because by the way, the behavioral scientists at these companies, what they're doing is they're managing the dopamine drip in your brain, and they run you on a cycle, right? So they don't keep you on the dopamine high all the time. They actually run you down on purpose, and then they run you back up because it keeps you addicted. My kids don't need that. That's a net negative. Like if I'm going to bring a thing into their life, it should be a net positive. Okay, fine. What about when they go to their friend's house? Now, here's where the conversation gets really interesting, because that's a thing that's going to happen for sure hundreds and hundreds of times during their childhood, maybe thousands, of where they are faced with, well, my best friend across the street has Snapchat and has TikTok and has all the things and even has their own channel where they post themselves doing all the things. And so then I'm exposed to it. And so education and values become, I mean, they're already fundamental, right? As parents, we're trying to share our values, or whether we're trying to or not, we are sharing our values with our kids. They're watching everything, right? And so we must educate our kids on the risks and on the situation so that when they do encounter these things, they're at least coming in with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of preparation. But so that's my, like, talk about a long answer. There's a lot there, but when you ask about, these addiction mechanisms and these technologies that we all know, we all say the words, right? Oh yeah, it's addictive. What does that mean, right? And so that's my study on what that means. So I'll pause there for a minute just to give a break and let you get a word in. But
I mean, no, I'm ready to end the episode. You just scared the bejesus out of me. That's enough internet for me today. I'm over here like reeling, like, oh my goodness. And you hit on so many things that I think so many of us are asking, right? It's like, okay, there are parental controls. You can only control so much. We know that the average child now gets exposed to things like porn at 8, 9 years old, where
7
I mean
is the average.
that's
Yeah,
crazy. That is
it
insane
is.
to me, and it's so sad. I have cried so many tears over these horrific stats like this. It's just like, I am not scared to have a baby. I was never scared to be pregnant. I am not scared to be a mom, but I am genuinely terrified right down to my core to be a parent in this age where technology is everywhere. All right, when we got pregnant, you know that one of the things I was most intentional about was building my baby registry. Not only did I want to only get things that we were absolutely going to use, but I wanted to make an investment into pieces that were going to really stick with our family for years to come and through multiple children. And to be honest, I learned about Lalo throughout this process, and they have a couple of staple pieces that I had to have. First and foremost, the minute I saw their hook on high chair, I knew that I had to have it. It's the definition of easy. And for a family that travels so much, Mr. HeHe and I are like on the go all the time, international, across the US, down to see my parents in the South. I knew that I had to have a high chair that could travel with us, that was light, that was compact, that could really serve our family on the go. And this is the one. It attaches right to your table, so baby gets to eat with you, not off to the side. And what I love the most is that it wipes clean in seconds. No crumbs hiding in weird crevices, no fabric to wrestle with. It's sleek, it's functional, and it actually blends in with your kitchen if this is a piece that you want to use as your full-time high chair. The other thing that I found absolutely drool-worthy was their play kit, and it's the cutest little play table and chair set, and it's like little kitty size, and I just loved it so much. I had to have it. So, of course, we got it for our playroom. And honestly, it's one of the things that every time I look into that playroom, I just imagine little baby Saggy sitting there coloring or playing with trucks, or I don't even know what they'll do at that play table, but I'm so excited to see what kind of magic they make happen. This is also a place where you can put it in your kitchen. Maybe this is a place where in your family snacks happen or crafts happen or just general chaos. If you're anything like me and you really, really desire for your children's gear to be minimalist and look beautiful in your home, but also have materials that are durable so that it lasts and that it grows with your child, this is something you absolutely have to have, because this is not a table and chair set that you're going to toss after one season of toddlerhood. I love Lalo so much because they really do get it. They design baby gear that supports development, family connection, and it's actually aesthetic. So if you're building your registry now, or you're just ready to upgrade to some really high quality baby gear, go to meetlalo.com and use code HeHe. That's HeHe. Again, that's meetlalo, LALO.com, and use code HeHe, HeHe, and get your hands on baby gear that doesn't just work, but it works beautifully. You hit on a real sore spot that I continue to ask everyone in my life, and everyone has a different answer. And I think it's because before we were recording, you had mentioned, like, this is not part of what used to be parenting. So like we never had anybody model this for us. This is so new. We are kind of the first generation that has to kind of figure out technology and parenthood. And I'm genuinely scared because you can do all the things and your kids are still going to see things. They're still going to go over to friend's house and have exposure to this stuff. And you also don't want to keep them from it, because I was the kid that went crazy in college because I had a bunch of stuff kept from me. And I don't
Yeah,
want that for my
right.
child either, right? Like, I want them to have the morals and the ethics that you're talking about. And I don't worry that I will not be able to do morals and ethics, but I do worry about just like, how will I manage their exposure? And if they're not being honest, because all teenagers lie. It's like it's part of being a teenager. You just lie. And I'm
Yeah,
not saying that it's certainly not a reflection on your parenting, right? Like, that's just a thing that teenagers do. It's almost like a developmental
yeah,
milestone. And how are
right.
you going to how are you going to manage that? Like, I guess my question that I'm trying to get at is, if everything is a manufactured addiction, what control do we have as parents? What are these conversations looking like in our home? Are you literally saying, like, you don't get social media until this age, and I need to sit you down and talk to you about the bad people online, and like, here are some things that you might see online that would be scary and inappropriate that mom and dad want you to come and talk to us about? What are these conversations truly, genuinely looking like at each stage of development with your children?
Yeah, excellent, excellent question. So So with that in mind, we can simplify the whole thing. You can spot the problem from a mile away by identifying what I like to refer to as a bottomless feed.
Hmm.
If there's a system where you can scroll and it never stops, that right there, for everybody listening, is a big red flag.
Hmm.
Anything with a bottomless feed directly correlates to mental health issues by design, right? On purpose.
They
That's
know what they're
meant
doing and
to
they
do.
still are doing it.
Absolutely. One of the early co-founders of Facebook testified to this specifically years ago, and now again with the new Senate hearings, talking about things like if a young girl posts a selfie and then deletes it, the algorithm picks up that she might not be feeling so good about herself that day, and they'll feed her ads about diet pills. Right? They know this. This is not an accident. So if you identify a bottomless feed, go far away. Now, that's the ideal. The reality is that, like you mentioned, parents have never had to deal with this before. Our human biology doesn't know how to do this. We, the adults, are just now learning how bad it is for us, let alone the kids. This is a big thing. And the reason I say that, because I'd like to just take this opportunity to say that no matter what your screen time is, and I mean not you, he specifically, but everybody listening, no matter what your screen time is, no matter how often you pick up your phone every day, that's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. You haven't done anything wrong. You have been, all of us, all 6 billion people that are on social media. So there's 8 billion people in the world. Or no, I'm sorry. The statistics are 8 billion in the world, 6 billion on the internet, 5 billion on social media.
Wow.
Those 5 billion of us are not bad people. These are not bad behaviors. This is us. This is our biology responding to natural mechanisms. And so I like to start there, that whatever your current status is, that is okay. You do not need to feel shame. You don't need to feel bad. You have done nothing wrong. And it's actually beautiful, because that means there's an opportunity for positive change. And for me, I love looking at problems through that lens. The problem is an opportunity for positive change. And so if we start with ourselves and we say, okay, my current state is 6 hours a day. And it's 3 hours of Instagram, and it's an hour of email, and it's an hour of TikTok, and whatever it is. No problem. That's okay. If I want to try to play around with the game, let me see if I can do 5.5 hours next week.
Hmm.
Let me work with myself as a human and recognize that one of the hardest things to do is change. The way that you approach change, and I learned this through technology, oddly enough, because like we're discussing, there's a lot of overlap between psychology and technology. Introducing change in bite-sized pieces is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go, let me go from 6 hours down to 5 hours and 45, 5 hours and 30. You know what? Next month, let me shoot for 5 hours. Let me go for 5 hours flat. If you do that alone and you save an hour a day, that is you recapturing your personal human currency that you then get to use however you like. And when you do that, depending on the age of your kids, if you can show your kids and you can muster the vulnerability, which I think is a wonderful thing to show. I love being vulnerable with my kid and telling him, like, man, I really made a mistake. Let me talk to you about it.
Hmm.
And in this case, it doesn't even have to be framed as a mistake. I'm just talking about just generally because I make lots of mistakes. But if I say, hey kid, check this out. Look at my thing. It says I'm on here 6 hours a day. I'm gonna try 5.5. And then let me show you on next Wednesday if I got it or not. If you don't, that's okay too. Try it
Mm-hmm.
again.
Mm-hmm.
But that right there, if you show your kid that and you bring them with you on the journey, when they get set up to have a phone and they get set up to have social media and they go to their friend's house and they go to all these things, and you tell them why you're doing it, right? Why your personal values don't align with having your attention stolen, for example. That is their education. That's where that's where you get to lead by example. And so we found ourselves as humans in this place in 2025 where one of the things we have to deal with is this technology craziness. So let's take it and use it as an opportunity. And the more vulnerable we are with our kids along the way, the better they're going to be set up for when they have to deal with it. Now, if you've already got teenagers and stuff, that's okay. Maybe they already have social media. That's okay. Again, no shame, no nothing. That's normal. It's an opportunity for positive change and an opportunity for education. And so there's a couple of little tricks that we can do to help ourselves. One is no devices in the bedrooms.
That's a good one.
And if you want to go really all the way with it, no devices in the bathrooms either. You know, I'm guilty of that, of using my phone in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like, for a lot of families, if I could, one of my favorite questions is if you could change just one thing, what would you change and why? If I could change just one thing, or if I suggest to people, for families that are deep in this, which, 5 billion of us are, try this one little change. No devices in the bedrooms or the bathrooms. So at night, you charge them in the kitchen or the living room. Maybe you have a little charging station and everybody's stuff is all plugged in. And shoot, nowadays there'll be 10 devices out there, because we've all got phones and tablets and watches and all the things. And then you put an alarm clock that's not connected to the internet in the bedroom. And so there's a company, Seiko, the watch
Mm-hmm.
company, the clock
Yep.
company, right? Made in Japan. They sell them on Amazon. You can get a nice little analog clock for $12. Lasts forever, cool little gadget. Cool. Because that's it. Well, how am I going to wake up in the morning? Okay,
Yep.
well, we'll just go back to how we used to do it. And there again, if the parents lead the way, it shows the kids how to establish healthy things so that if the kid moves out to college and moves out to their first apartment, are they going to charge the phone in the room or are they going to charge the phone in the kitchen? Which habits have they built? So that's a big one. And that right there, like those two things discussed so far, honestly, are like a really effective way to chip away at this gigantic problem. Now, that's on the addiction side. There's because there's two pieces to this puzzle. There's mental health and there's physical health.
Hmm.
We've talked about the mental health. And I can transition into talking about the physical health, but do you want to do that or do you have any questions or anything further on the mental health?
No, I mean, I think this is all, we all know it, right? It's just really nice to have an expert on that says, like, yes, this is true. What you have been feeling that you've been scrolling. So I'll give you a little anecdote. At the beginning of this year, I got a notification on my phone, and I say this with so much like what used to be shame. I mean, I was genuinely so ashamed of myself when I got this. It said your average screen time is 9 hours on your phone. And I
Mm,
I cried. I started crying. It
mm,
made me disappointed in myself. I was ashamed at how much I spent on my phone. I then went into this period of trying to rationalize, well, I work from my phone. My email is on my phone. I'm a doula. I have to be on call, like all of my clients. And then I just stopped myself and I said, no, you're literally making excuses for how much you're missing out on life. It was 9 hours a day that I wasn't spending with my husband and I wasn't genuinely working on my mental health. And I understand that you work 8 hours a day. I do understand that. I've
yeah.
transitioned a lot of that to my computer. And I
Yeah.
have put the time limits on Instagram, and I haven't tried any of those like time blocking devices like the brick or anything like that. I was
Yeah.
able to do it without those devices. And now my screen time is much lower. I mean, I still spend 4 to 6 hours a day on my phone. But for me, the
Same here.
realization of 8 hours, 9 hours a day was just harrowing. And it really was the wake up call that I needed. I mean, it was, like I say, I had so much shame around it. It made me feel just disgusting about myself. And that is not, I know, believe it or not, listeners, you probably are like, what? He feels that. I do sometimes feel that way about myself. It is not normal for me. I very rarely am like, wow, I'm so disappointed in myself. Usually I'm like, wow, that was a good try. Let's try it again. Let's do better next time. But this one I was like, okay, I am genuinely failing. This is really bad and I need to make some pivots in my life. And I was able to do it, but yeah, it didn't feel great.
No. Yeah, it's so hard. It's really, really hard. And we desire connection,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Totally.
We are, of course, social beings, and these
Mhm.
systems fool us into thinking that that's what they give us.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that makes it so hard. But you're like, but that's my guts are telling me to that this is my social mechanism.
Hmm. Those are my
Um,
friends on there. Like, I want to share this kind of stuff with you. But one thing I've learned about being a creator is very few people on your social media are actually your friends. A lot of them are just
yeah,
watching your life. And so just be very careful with that if you're out there and you are, you're missing if you're missing out on in-person human connection and you're foregoing that to have actual friends and instead you're choosing social media of people that you will never meet in real life? Are they really going to stand up for you if anything bad happens? Are they going to come over when you have a baby and take care of you? Are they going to be checking on you when things in your life go wrong? The answer is no. People who watch your life online, they are not your friends. They're just genuinely not. Now, is it possible that you can make a friend or two online? Of course. I have a lot of real life friends that I first initially met online, but we had to
yeah,
take our relationship offline in order to be able to cultivate a friendship. And so I just want to like really put that out there. If you're foregoing human in-person interaction for the internet, just really consider if that is serving you in the way that you want it to or not.
yeah, absolutely. And one of the most important things to demonstrate to our kids is perhaps one of the most challenging things to acquire, which is a deep self-confidence
Totally.
that I'm okay by myself the way I am.
That's hard.
Re- yeah, like that's why there's a lot of psychologists in the world because that problem's the hard. We're all dealing
Yeah.
with that to some extent or another. And these systems make it a lot harder, and it really, especially for young people, the shape of the chart that I discussed, I name that chart sometimes like in my mind, I'll put titles over the chart that like everybody's perfect except for me, and of course that's not true, but that's what it looks like when you look at it through the screen
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
when the algorithm shows you what it wants to show you so that it can have more of your attention. So thank you for sharing that story because that's a very relatable, it's very realistic, it's very normal.
Mm,
And the feelings that you experienced are like the real, that is the reality of
mm,
like facing these things. So that if any of us take away from this conversation and we say, you know what, let me look at my screen time and let me try to see if I want to make it lower, be ready that you will feel these things and it's okay. It's normal, and
yeah.
that it's not you. Like it's not like I said, like you didn't screw up. It's just here you are in this moment and then what can you do?
Mm. Which is so hard. I mean, it is genuinely hard to look at a problem that I mean, you kind of created, like I created that. I allowed myself to spend 9 hours a day on my phone. I allowed myself to continue, and I understand that it's manufactured. I totally get that. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm all about radical responsibility here too. Like I'm not gonna just put it off on Meta and say like, well, they tricked me. It's like, yeah, and I also had my own free will. Like at any time I could
yeah,
decide, and I did decide. It was an ugly, very tearful wake up call. But I did decide, like, you know what? I'm not going to log on to Instagram the minute that my eyes open, and I'm not going to log on to Instagram at lunch. I'm actually going to have lunch with my husband and we're going to talk, and my phone will be up in my office, and I'm going to ask him to leave his up in his office as well, and we can spend
yes,
that time together. Okay, Ben, I am
yeah.
interested in the physical stuff. I want to cover it really briefly because what my audience is like really, really interested in is predators online and how to keep our kids safe from that. And I want to make sure that we
Yeah.
don't run out of time for that. So, just very
Okay.
briefly, what are the physical impacts? I mean, I assume it's like we're not moving, we're sedentary, we're like getting bad backs and we're getting fat, and it's like, we're losing muscle and stuff. Is that kind of what the idea is?
Actually, yes, but actually, when I talk about physical safety, I am actually referring to the predators and stuff.
Oh, yeah, let's do that then. I thought
So
you were going to
yeah,
be
so we
like,
can
we
get
are
right into
getting
that.
fat and dumb and just like rotting our bodies
Right.
away. I mean, I think that is probably happening too.
Shoot, maybe, man. It's yeah, it's a tough thing to keep up with, and that's a whole angle. But really, the yeah, the physical safety thing for me, the big uh, target of focus is the predator thing.
Please tell us.
I just like the suicide statistics. I don't know how to hold this stuff in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll just tell you what I know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
If you expose a child to a chat system, especially an anonymous chat system,
Like,
these occur, they're in most every game, Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft, Discourse, Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. They all have chat functions where you can chat with strangers.
okay.
Now, most of the time, we're going to find friendlies, share our hobbies, share our passions, share a chat, whatever. There's also a significant portion, and I don't know, nobody knows the actual number, but there's a significant portion of the people that are on these systems that are evil,
Mm-hmm.
that intend harm. And anonymous online chat is where predators hunt for children. I don't like saying that out loud. I'm not trying to be dramatic. That is just what it is. They don't go to the park in the van anymore. They don't need to put themselves at that level of risk, right? Because as weird as it sounds, we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the predator. In order to manage the risk, we must assess the risk. Does the predator want to go show his face at the park and potentially get caught by the police and all the cameras and all the things, and everybody's got cameras in their pockets with the license plates and everything else? Or do they want to go online and get on a VPN and be username 123XYZ and say, hey, kid, I'm also a kid. Let's be friends. Where do you go to school? Oh, you have a brother named so and so. Oh, my sister goes there. Do you know so and so? And many of the world's largest criminal organizations have figured out that if you trick a teenage boy into sending you a naked photo,
Mm-hmm.
you can blackmail them.
Yep. Oh my God.
Remember the have you ever heard of the Yahoo boys? They were like the Nigerian prince emails back in the day,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
right? So their
Yeah.
group, the group that does that, they called themselves the Yahoo boys. Yahoo, like the yahoo.com,
Yeah,
whatever.
like
That's
the
just
old email
apparently
address
that's
we
the
used to
name.
have.
Yeah. So like 20 years ago, they try to scam you with a poorly written email that they're a prince and they need to wire you money and all the things. Well, okay, so those same people now, enterprising individuals, like, oh, well, we have all these teenage boys online. If we just go and pretend that we're a girl and then we send them a photo of us with our shirt off or whatever, and then we tell them to send a photo back, and then they send a photo back, and then now we say, actually, we're not a girl. We're actually going to blackmail you, and you need to send me $500 in iTunes gift cards, or I'm going to, because by the way, while we've been friends, I've been looking through your Instagram profile, and I'm friends with all your friends. So I know all your schoolmates, I know all your church mates, and I know everybody in your family, and I'm going to show all of them the photos that you sent me, unless you send me money. Now, there's roughly one suicide a month as a result of this.
Oh my gosh.
For the majority of the kids that do survive it, it's extremely traumatic, very damaging, which gets back into the mental health component. But so there's two pieces. There's criminal sextortion. So that's that piece. That's like literally criminal gangs. So there's criminal gangs in every major continent that exercise this at scale with automation. So they automate the hunting process. So like in the business world, if you do sales, you do what's called lead generation, where you go out and you collect a big bucket of people, and then you try to qualify the leads to get down to like, who do I actually want to target my energy to? So they do the same thing. The lead generation process is automated. So they go out and they figure, and they have bots and like AI systems that will go and actually like initiate the conversations and generate the photos and send the photos. And then eventually a person, from the Yahoo boys in Nigeria or a gang in the Philippines or whoever will actually engage with the teenage boys. So that's criminal sextortion. And then you have the like sexual predators who are not in it for money, they're in it for their own whatever. And this is the same thing. They use anonymous online chat. So the key is, like all the stuff we've talked about so far, there's the two buckets that shape the whole thing. There's addictive algorithms. So that's the first piece we discussed. The second piece is anonymous online chat.
Mm.
If as a parent, if you focus on those two things, you've covered over 90% of the problem set that
Okay.
exists with putting a kid on the internet. So if you just addictive algorithms, anonymous online chat, you just repeat those to yourself. And every time your kid comes and says, hey, can I have this? Can I have that? Can I get a phone? Can I get this app? Can I get that app? Can I get that game? Does it have an addictive algorithm, AKA a bottomless feed? So you can see it, right? Does it have a bottomless feed? And or does it have anonymous online chat? Those two things are like, you want to avoid those things like the plague. And because if you just structure it in those buckets, like you're covering most of the thing. Now, there's an unusual piece here that I don't really hear anybody talking about, and so I want to put it out there. The tool that facilitates sextortion ultimately is the camera.
Mm.
You cannot get sextorted if you can't take a picture. What does every phone, tablet, and computer have built into it? A
Yep.
camera, an internet-connected camera. So it's worth knowing that the parental control systems built into iPhones and Androids and Chromebooks and Windows have the ability to disable the camera.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
Yeah, and so there's stuff to be done, right? Like, so if we just say, okay, if I see an addictive algorithm, if I see a bottomless feed, red flag, extra attention. If I see an anonymous online chat system, red flag, extra attention. If my kid has access to an internet-connected camera, massive red flag, use the parental controls, turn the thing off. And that's where the bedroom thing comes in. Because by the way, putting devices in the bedroom and the bathroom, so the police officers that I've spoken to that cover these cases, their anecdotes say, or is it anecdata? I don't know. They say that these problems occur at midnight. They occur at 2 a.m. Right? They don't occur at 4 p.m. They don't occur at noon. They occur when the kid is in the bedroom by themselves with nothing else to do, and they're just scrolling and going, oh, there's a friend, there's a chat, there's a thing, there's an algorithm. So if you take the device out of the bedroom and you take the device out of the private areas of the home, it helps eliminate both the mental health and the physical health risks. And then if you turn off the camera, that helps too. And so the predator thing, you have like Snapchat. They have internal reports at Snapchat that say that they have over 10,000 cases of sextortion a month
Oh
just on
my.
Snapchat. The NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they operate this like cyber tip line. They cooperate with a bunch of governments. And if you are involved with sextortion, you can call them and they'll help you. They get like some ungodly number. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. They get some enormous number too. And by the way, the Snapchat report, this was like a leaked internal report that Snapchat made themselves, it specifically said that the 10,000 number is likely way lower than the real number because those are just the ones that get reported, right? Like most kids are not going to report this. And so I bring up the statistics because I want to emphasize that like these are not small problems. These are big, big problems to the extent that I interviewed a guy called Officer Gomez. He's a school resource officer here in Idaho,
Mm-hmm.
and he focuses on this topic a lot. He's got a big Facebook page. You should check him out.
Yeah.
Every parent should check out his Facebook page. So I had him on my podcast. His impression and his experience led him to say that 100% of teenage boys will be targeted by sextortion.
Oh
Now, they
my
won't fall
gosh.
victim necessarily, but they will be targeted. And the ones that do fall victim will often fall victim multiple times. And so this is a significant scale of a problem. So it is very important that we remember the two buckets of addictive algorithms and anonymous online chat, and that we write those on the fridge or something. So that every time there's a technology decision, those are the first two questions. Because if you cover those questions, you're pretty good to go, right? There's other little things here and there, but those are the big ones. And it's easy to write off and say, it's not going to happen to me. It's not
It
going to
might.
happen to my kid. Well, there is no delineation between, well, my kid is this way and that way, and so it's not going to happen to them. There's no such thing. If you put a young person on anonymous online chat, sexual predators and or criminals will contact them. And so therefore, don't expose them to that stuff. And educate them on why not. So that when they go to their friend's house and they're playing Roblox and they're playing Call of Duty and there's all these chat functions and there's voice chat and text chat and all the things, they know to look out for like, hey, I'm another kid just like you. Okay, that's fine. Let's play the game together and let's pretend that's true. But the moment that you ask me for personal information, nope, my parents told me that that's a big problem. I'm
Hmm.
not telling you my name. I'm not telling you where I go to school. I'm not telling you where I live. I'm not telling you my brother's name. I'm not telling you my dog's name. I'm not telling you my hobbies. I'm going to remember that I don't know you. So that's how we teach our kids. The stranger danger now is like that.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so for these anonymous chats, do a lot of these apps have parental controls where you can turn them off, or do parents need to go in and be monitoring, or are they like Snapchat where they kind of disappear?
Most of the big ones do let you turn off chat.
Okay.
Some of them have workarounds and things, and depending on the age of the kid, like for younger kids, you don't have to always worry as much about the workarounds. Like if you put a restriction in place, it'll stay. For the older kids, they'll go like, oh, my Roblox account is limited by my parental control thingy. I'll just log out and then create another one. That's the, so it's pretty, like ChatGPT is announced that they're going to be doing parental controls here in the next month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, you just log out and do another one. I mean, um, but yes, most of the tools have the ability to turn off chat. If you can't turn the chat off, and if your kid's older and you can't make it tamper proof, then I hate to say it, but then so just don't play a different game.
Yeah, don't have it
You
in
know,
your house. Yeah.
yeah, and it sucks, man, because these games, Roblox, for example, like researchers have called it a pedophile hellscape. But also, it has a lot of amazing stuff. It's like the most popular game in the world for a reason. Or it's a gaming platform. There's like 40 million different games, like literally 40 million different games in there.
Hmm.
So there's a bunch of good ones, you know? And so these freaking evil people that are trying to hurt kids on purpose, they're ruining it for everybody, right? They're spoiling the good stuff. So that sucks, but like, so then just find another game, you know?
Now, what about I sit down with my child and we play together, and that's how we have it in our home? Is that another approach? Because I could see that
Yes.
being something that my husband and I do, and we have like family game nights. So you don't have to go without Roblox, but all of us get to
Yeah.
play. And what we don't have is you having it in your bedroom late at night while we're sleeping and you're up playing, chatting with who, God knows who.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. I think that helps a lot. It doesn't cover every scenario, but it covers most of them. There's some games where, like YouTube as well, like Roblox, these things where you can stumble into like, oh, there's a thing on the screen. Oh crap. I didn't really want them to see that, now I got to explain to them what that was.
Got it.
There's a little bit of that, but past that, I mean, if a game is being considered and you play it by yourself for 15 minutes and you kind of see what the vibe is, and then you play it together with your kids, I think that's a great idea. Like generally speaking, yes, that is the way.
Mm-hmm.
Because definitely like the riskiest thing to do is to let them play a game that you haven't played or that you haven't seen. So even if you're not like side by side the whole time, let's say you're in the kitchen and they're in the living room, but like, okay, in Roblox, there's 40 million games. It's okay if you play this one and this one and this one. And then I'm going to
Got
be
it.
over here listening and. So you can absolutely, yes, great idea.
It reminds me of when I was little and before I watched a movie, my parents would watch it first and they would just make sure that it had everything. And, I have cousins that have teenagers now, and I was talking to them this summer when we were at a family barbecue, and she was talking about books that we were each sharing books that we were reading, and she shared what her daughter was reading, and I was like, oh, I've never even heard of that, and she said neither had I, and she said actually, interesting enough, I read every book that she wants to read before she reads
Wow.
it to make sure that it's appropriate for her, and that if there's anything in there that I don't want her to see, I can explain to her why I'm not letting her read it, or I use it as a learning opportunity when she comes to that point in the book and we can have discussion about it. And I was like, that is so time consuming and also so smart. Like, you're such a
Right.
dedicated mom, and also to read children's books at night instead of the books that you want. Like, that's just
Yeah,
such
that's
love
amazing.
and like safety. So that's yeah. Okay. As we wrap up here, I would love to know signs of maybe that your child is slipping into this space of maybe talking to people online that they should not be talking to, or maybe they have gone as far as to make a real mistake online, like sending inappropriate pictures, or maybe they have gone as far as to, say that they're going to meet up with someone, they have something on the
Mhm.
calendar. What are we looking for in them as parents? And obviously, I mean, you know better than I am, but are we talking mainly teenagers, or should we actually be monitoring our 8, 9, 10 year olds for these things as well?
Any young person with internet access of any age,
Oh my
if
God.
they have a device with internet access. So the way I break it into two pieces. The youngest kids, you should take what's called a whitelist approach. What that means is that nothing is allowed except for a specific list of things,
Huh.
whether those things are websites, videos, games, apps. They start with 0 and you add, I approve this video. YouTube Kids has this mode called approved content only,
Oh,
and it's a whitelist mode, and it's wonderful. It turns off the algorithms and it lets parents say, yes, that channel's okay, that channel's okay, and that channel's okay. Those are the only things my kid can see. So with the youngest kids, you want to take a whitelist approach. When you take a whitelist approach, you reduce what's called, in the security world, we call it an attack surface. You make the attack surface very small because nothing on the white, you're not going to approve an online chat system, and you're not going to approve an algorithm, ideally. And so what you're left with is like, do I like the video? Do I like the website? You've got a small list of things. Okay, now, at some point in development, they need to transition into a blacklist mode where everything is allowed except for certain things or certain categories. That is where it has to be addressed, where the conversations have to occur. So like, at some point we all have to have the sex talk. Well, now we got to have this talk too. And you give them access, that you give them, here's a phone or a computer that's in blacklist mode. So like you have broad access, but we've blocked porn and we've blocked whatever categories, right? Then you have to have the talk, yeah. Then you have to let them know, like, here are the risks. Here's what you need to look out for as red flags. Now, if you have a child who has gotten into something, which is very common, unfortunately, the first thing that comes to mind for me is when you issue the device, you do it along with a family agreement. And I have a template on my website that people can use for free. A family technology agreement. And it's all editable. You can put in, customize it to yourself. So you say, here's your device. Okay, you're 14, whatever, you're 16, you're 10. We decide to give you a device. Here's the agreement. So we all have expectations that are clear. We're going to charge it in the kitchen. We're going to use it for these things. If we get caught using it for these other things, it gets taken away. Whatever, right? In that agreement and in the handover of the device should be a free pass. If you find yourself in trouble, free pass. The theme that I have read over and over again with the kids that really get into trouble, that they can't come back from, is because they weren't comfortable telling their parents.
Mm.
So the free pass thing, I think, is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Free pass, like legit. And then you have to do it, right? Like if they come and they say, hey, mom, like, ooh, I sent some pictures. I thought she was a real girl. And now you're going to see these pictures and I'd rather you not. And like, oh my God, free pass. You're not in trouble. Thank you for telling me. I will help you.
Mm-hmm.
You are not in trouble. There's no, you're not, like, so that's what comes to mind first. Signs to look for, unfortunately, are very similar to the signs of being a teenager. Are they wearing unusual clothes? All of a sudden, is their room darker and they've got the window shades closed all the time? They're acting extra melodramatic. There is actually so I talked to this guy on my podcast called Conrad Woodall. And he was a police officer that was hunting predators and all this kind of stuff for like 25 years. And what he was saying was that kids, one of the ways you can know, especially with younger kids, is if they know too much. They know about like sexual things. You're like, wait a minute, why do you know that? That is a red flag. That's a sign of grooming. And what Conrad taught me was the definition of grooming. The definition of grooming is getting somebody used to something that they're not used to. And so one of the ways to do that is you slowly introduce ideas and things, and you teach them things to where they think that it's normal.
Mm.
And so if a kid is expressing words and expressing concepts that are advanced, that are inappropriate, that is a potential sign of grooming.
Someone has taught them that, and it wasn't you.
Right. And I'll say something here that I'm not, some people are going to get upset at me. I'll say it anyways because it seems to be true. Some of the educational materials now in schools, even all the way down to young ages, like elementary schools, have sexual material. They talk about sexual concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And what Conrad taught me was that all the opinions and the politics and the preferences aside, what those books do is they groom children.
Yes.
And so then when the predators are coming around, he said that's the predator's best friend. They already
Hmm.
did all the work.
Totally.
So now when the kid expresses an advanced topic or a thing they're not supposed to know, did they get it from the first grade classroom or did they get it from a predator? So it's very murky. It's
Hmm.
very difficult. But that's why the free pass thing comes to mind first, because it's real hard to tell what's going on with kids. Like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Like, they're not going to tell you, or depending, right? Especially if they're 13 or 16 or. But if they have a free pass and you truly let them exercise that, then I feel like that's helpful. And so I think we have to recognize that we get to choose what we introduce. We get to choose, do we give them a tablet when they're 2 or not? Do we give them a phone when they're 8 or 10 or 12 or 14 or not? We give them those things. Now, sometimes grandma gives them and grandpa.
Hmm.
And so then it's up to us as parents to say, thank you so much for offering that $800 beautiful piece of technology, but unfortunately it doesn't match our family values, and here's what we're trying to do. And like, we're not ready to give that to, we don't need to introduce these things. Kids don't get addicted to YouTube if they don't have YouTube. Kids don't get addicted to their tablets if they don't have a tablet. They don't sit in the back of the car freaking out about their tablet if they don't have one. you know and I'm laughing just to try. I'm trying to bring some lightness here, but it's true. Like, we get to choose, at least at the start. They don't have to have these things.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that's the way I think about that.
I love it. Look, I love the way that you present it as, there's some manufactured addiction in there, but then there's some responsibility on us as well. And that is the theme of everything that I do here, right? Is that from the hospital system being a system that traditionally takes advantage of women in labor to at some point you are handing over your power. This is the exact same thing. We can draw that same parallel. Like, yes, social media is a system that has been designed to take advantage of human psychology and our attention and the time that we're willing to spend on it. And they do it in nefarious ways. They've even admitted such, right? But
Yeah,
we have
that's
a
right.
responsibility too. And I do also love, and I really want to just highlight that you say, like, there is no shame in once you realize, okay, this has become a runaway train, but I have the choice that I can take this back and I am going to do that. I think that so many of us are powered by the shame and embarrassment and guilt and the big kind of icky feelings that we feel. And part
Yeah.
of having this podcast and this show and this community at whole is to say, like, you did the best you could at the time with the information that you have. I am trying to share with you more information that may inform your decisions differently. And if you want to make different decisions, you should and you can. And I'm here to hold your hand and hold space for that and to bring you more experts to say, like, here's how you can do it easily. Here's how you can do it not so easily, but it can be done. So, Ben, genuinely, thank you so much for being here. This conversation was everything that I wanted it to be and
Oh,
more.
good.
And, I expressed in the beginning that I'm genuinely fearful to be a parent in this day and age of children and teenagers, particularly because it is such a balance that you're trying to strike of preparing them for the world and being independent, being critical thinkers, keeping themselves safe, but also realizing like I have a responsibility to keep them safe because I am their parent. And how do I relinquish some control while also not relinquishing too much as to put them into harm's way? And that's a really hard thing.
It sure is. It's like the ultimate balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to throw out there something that I think about all the time is, not only is it okay to not be normal,
Mm,
don't be normal.
mm.
Show your kids how to not be normal. Because you know what normal is? It's average.
Boring.
Average is middle of the bell curve.
Yeah.
I want to be on the right side of the bell curve. I want to be doing my own thing, making my own choices, and I want to teach my kids how to do their own thing and make their own choices and not be normal. Don't be normal when you're in the hospital giving birth and just take whatever the doctor tells you to do. No,
Yes.
do it your way, intentionally, on purpose, with education, and make it happen for you and for your family.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh, Ben. Okay. We could talk for hours. I could literally have you
Yeah.
back on we could start our own podcast. I have so many questions
That's
still.
right.
But
Yeah.
I won't do that and I won't keep your time. But you have a great podcast and you have an awesome social media. And where else can people connect with you and learn from you if they're interested in this information?
Yeah, thank you. My website is probably the best place to start because everything links out from there. So familyitguy.com. And I actually recently launched a chatbot on the website.
Nice.
So I trained this little AI robot. I gave it all my work and all my podcasts and all my lectures and all my videos and all my articles. And you can ask it the same questions that you might want to ask me but I can't one-on-one with everybody. So this is my free way. Like if you want Ben as a consultant in your family internet journey, please try my chatbot. It speaks 95 languages.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's really cool. And it's so good. I've pressure tested it a lot because I was nervous about releasing it. So familyitguy.com is where you can find that. And there's links to all them on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all the things. And also an important resource for parents is this thing called ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. It's a police task force that's funded by most state attorneys general. And so most states have an ICAC task force. And ICAC puts on educational events and they have their own social media where they share things that they learn. These are the police officers that are doing the arrests and doing the investigations. These people know more about this stuff than anybody on the planet. So familyitguy.com, and then look up your local Internet Crimes Against Children task force.
Thank you so much. Genuinely, thank you so much for being here. You guys, I hope we didn't scare you too bad, but I hope that we did light a fire under your hiney. We all need this, right? We're all so accustomed to just being on the internet. And if you're anything like me, you can identify the predators, you can identify the horrible pictures and just rationalize, like, that's a horrible human. I'm going to block them. And you move on about your day. It's not that easy if you don't have your frontal cortex completely developed. It's not that easy if you're 14 and you are dealing with body image issues. It's not that easy if you're a 16-year-old boy and you're being bullied at school, or worse yet, you are quote unquote popular and you don't even know how you got there and you feel like the whole school is looking at you for answers and to be a role model and to throw the longest pass on the football team every Friday. Kids have so much pressure on them these days that I can honestly say that as a teenager, I did not feel that same pressure. And so I wanted to have been on the show to equip you with things that you can keep your family and your children safe with, things like AI and tech boundaries, and what does introducing devices into your home look like, because technology is not going anywhere, unfortunately, and we have to learn how to coexist with it in a safe way that is going to protect our kids right now, but also long term. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here, everyone. Of course, I love hanging out with you every single week, and I'll see you in the next episode. Be sure to follow Ben on social media, and you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe and at the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I love hanging out with you, and it is an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review and tell others why they should be listening to the Birth Lounge podcast too. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent without all the trauma that you so commonly hear about on social media. New episodes air every Wednesday and Friday. Hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. I'm HeHe, and this is the Birth Lounge Podcast.